You're watching the Play Pouch. Welcome back, everyone. We're doing a little review for Mass Effect 2, and it's including the Legendary Edition. So I've just recently completed this game, and when I mean recently, I mean within the previous day or so. And it's a good game. Overall, it's good. I mean, I can't sort of really give you a difference between the original version and the Legendary Edition, but it was a nice little ride. There were some annoying things about it, but overall, it was just top class. Great characters, great storyline. Let us go to my video that I have prepared. Yes.
Hello, by the way.
Yes, I am joined once again by Nick. Hello, Nick.
You've forgotten about me then, Pete. I was just going to sit there in silence.
Oh, it's fucking hot, mate. I
know. Yeah, it's England and it's been horrible all day and it still is. Horrible as in too hot. Yeah.
Oh, it's like India. It's crazy. So yes, no, I forgot to introduce my partner, which I do apologise for. Hello. Yes, and if you like our shows, please subscribe and all that. And just to remind you, we do have a Patreon, which enables us to speak a little bit more freely. If we do ever get any support, that would be lovely.
Yes.
So, we begin Mass Effect 2 dead, essentially.
I thought that was an interesting starting point. Right, so I mean, you've obviously just played it. I have played the remastered, I suppose, version of this, but I did stop halfway through, not because it was bad, just because something else came out. So I have played at least half of the Legendary Edition of this. And I think, a good starting point is, how did you feel about, technically, I mean, you do die. It's not like, you do die. Your body evaporates in the atmosphere. So it's not you do technically die. It's not like you kind of die and then kind of come back to life. Technically, you as you know it is died. You're technically kind of a clone, really.
Do you get evaporated? I just thought
you fall into you fall into the atmosphere, don't you? So you burn up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
They do bring some form of your remains, but I imagine it's just like a charred corpse.
Hmm.
So they rebuild you, but it's an interesting way. It's an interesting, mechanic to kind of give you almost like, well, that's kind of why your character's low level again and stuff like that. I suppose that's kind of, and also, how did you feel also, because technically it's the middle act in the 3-act story, which a lot of times is the hardest one to do. So they do switch it up. I think they do a really good job, because in the first game and in the third game, you kind of are working for, I'm going to call them Starfleet, but they're not Starfleet, but they are Starfleet, if you get me. The Federation. Yeah, but in the second game, that's what I mean. In the second game, you're kind of working for Cerberus, so you're working for much more of a dodgy corporation. And it's a darker game, the whole thing, and we'll get on to obviously the last mission as well. It's a darker game overall. Like I say, in the third game, you are kind of technically back with, I'm just going to call them the Federation, Pete. You're technically back with the Federation. You're
Alliance.
Yes, you're back in their good graces. But in the second game, no, it's kind of like most of them treat you badly, and we'll get on to if you chose a love interest in the first game that they also treat you quite badly as well, is my opinion. So
I didn't choose the love interest in either of the games. I couldn't be bothered.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I understand the way they did the intro. I just want to sort of like bring that up.
What did you think of it? Did you think it was a good idea or were you? Because when they first did it, I remember being a little bit like, well, so I'm just dead then. I was a little bummed out, because obviously you're this kick-ass character who obviously survives the first game, and then you fire up the second game, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You just get killed. And I don't know. I was bummed out, because I know they bring you back and everything, but it's like, it depends on how you view life, I suppose. Because technically, it's kind of like, well, I was always thinking to myself, I'm not really me anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Well, I mean, like you are. I know what you mean, but I mean, like it was an interesting way that they did it, and they did it for a number of different reasons. First one being that you're morally in Cerberus's debt, essentially, and you know you have to face some moral choices towards the end about whether to sort of help Cerberus out or not. You know, I like that. And I mean, like, they could have done it a different way. They could have sort of had it so that you weren't completely sort of like dead, but maybe sort of severely maimed or whatever. I don't know. But I think it was, another reason is the fact that they wanted to sort of refresh the Normandy and sort of upgrade it a little bit for the new game, the second part, and which is fine. But I'm not a huge fan of the Normandy, to be quite honest. I mean, it's a nice ship, but
What don't you like about it? You mean just what it looks like, or?
Yeah, just literally what it looks like. The internals are fine, but I just think it just looks like, just like a slither. It's just like a sort of a shard of something. It's not like there doesn't seem to be much of a bulk to it. Sort of like that whole bulky type feel, and it's. But I'm just picking at straws here, and it's not like a big thing at all. But and as I said, there are some other nitpicks. But I mean, like the intro, I guess, had to be that way so that they could do some refreshing and stuff like that, and bring in this moral ambiguity of Cerberus, who we know, by the way, is like a fairly evil court.
They're certainly portrayed that way significant in the first game. They are they're xenophobic humanists, I suppose. I'm trying to think of the right word to use, where they'll kind of Pete, I guess it depends on. I mean, I played it, as I said, I've played all the Mass Effects at least twice each and I went completely different routes. But if you're playing a Paragon, right, in the first game, for example, in your ship, largely, if your Shepard's a Paragon in the first game, then most likely you're going to be disagreeing with the majority of what Cerberus got up to in the first game. So in the second game, it's probably a much bigger switch. But if you're playing as a renegade in the first game, your moral alignment probably isn't that far from Cerberus, where it's all about, especially if you choose to kill the council at the end of the first game. That's literally what Cerberus would do. They'd sacrifice the other races so that humanity could get a kickstart. That's exactly what Cerberus would do. So if you chose that as your ending of the first game, it's probably not that big a leap, is it?
Well, I chose to do that.
So your character, so when you played it the second game, I suppose morally, I don't know, I guess your character maybe was aligned to a certain degree with what they.
Well, my character is of the belief that yes, some sacrifices have to be made in order for the greater good. The greater good. Yeah. But I mean, like with the council kind of sucked. And I was just like, well, either we go to save them. This is the ending of the first one, by the way. Either we go to save them and compromise our chances of taking out the Reaper ship, Sovereign, which has latched itself onto the Citadel Tower, whatever, or we just wait for the rest of the fleet to come in and sort of overwhelm it. And that's what I chose to do, because it was like, well, I'm not going to sort of, save a few people just because they're the council. It's for the greater good, do you know what I mean? So I earned myself some renegade points for that, which is fine.
Yeah, that is the renegade ending. So generally you played more on the Paragon side, but when it came to the final decision, you actually went with the more renegade option. Interesting.
Yeah, it was 80-20 basically. And so with the second one, it's like, the Citadel weren't all that pleased with me, basically. That the council didn't want to see me when I went to visit Hackett and Anderson. So I was just like, whatever, man. I'm not looking to make friends. I'm looking to save the human race, So
I mean, the actual in-game consequences is quite small. I think you get a different cutscene with.
Yeah.
If memory serves, I think the person in charge is slightly different. I can't remember the dude's name. You know, the kind of corporate kind of ass kisser, one who wants to kind of who hates the council. In the first game, he becomes like the leader, doesn't he, or the ambassador? And I think.
Oh, you choose at the end of the first one, don't you, who you want to be the ambassador?
The guy ends up being, I forget, a Shepard's mate.
Well, you can either choose Anderson or Hackett, and I chose Anderson, and he didn't really like being an ambassador. I was like, oh,
no, he didn't want to do it, does it?
Yeah.
So another change that I'll speak of two more changes. One really did stick out in my head, and that is they changed the way ammo works. In the first game, there was no such thing as ammo drops. Every weapon was.
Yeah, it was all like energy recharge, wasn't it? Yeah.
So in the second game, they streamlined it. I'm assuming I didn't mind it personally. The first game, I didn't have a problem with it, but obviously other people must have, because they certainly got rid of all of that stuff, and they changed it so that every weapon's kind of got ammo now, or it's called heat sinks or something, isn't it? And you have to pick up the heat sinks, so your weapon. So how did you feel? It didn't break the game or change the game that much, but I do remember thinking, what? Why is there all ammo lying around? And I felt it was a little bit tacked on. It was a way, no, we're just going to have ammo now, and the reasons behind it. They gave some crappy reason in the codex, and I'm like, what? This is the future. Why are we getting less tech rather than? Do you know what I mean? It's like we're going back to tech. It's like, no, come on.
Yeah, I feel you're right. I feel like it was a tacked on thing. I don't feel they balanced it very well with like the amount of ammo you have in a clip and etc. And I feel like, well, why make that drastic change?
I don't know. Like I say, all I can think of, we're obviously going back a long time here, but obviously I can think of that there was a lot of people who didn't like the whole heat sink, the way every weapon in the first game, I suppose, they couldn't keep firing. They had to kind of I guess they felt they had to manage all the heat and stuff was an extra hassle for them. I'm just assuming here. I don't know. It didn't bother me, but I don't know.
No, it wasn't like a big thing, but it was. I mean, like, because there's plenty of it around, so you never run out.
Yeah, they always gave.
So it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't an issue, but I mean, yeah, it was just like, really, okay, fine. No, it was fine.
Another new thing they added, and this thing I think was a very positive thing, especially for my Renegade Shepherd, who would, as soon as I'd see it pop up, I'd immediately press it. No, there's no hesitation. And that's the interrupts that are based upon. This wasn't in the first game, so the interrupts of cutscenes. So if you're having a conversation, if you, I don't know if it's that you have to have a certain level on one side for it to trigger. That might be a certain kind of dice roll behind the scenes as well, or I can't remember if it's you always get these options no matter.
I think you always get them, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, and these are predetermined, so don't think it's like random. It's not. I wish it was. These are predetermined that pretty much in every cutscene, or a lot of them, there'll be you'll get a couple of seconds to either press the left trigger or the right trigger, whichever one it shows. So sometimes there's a Paragon interrupt, which is obviously, as it sounds like, your Shepherd will normally do something heroic or something like that to get his point across, or there'll be a bad guy, Renegade interrupt, which is normally more aggressive, can be violent, stuff like that. And I didn't use it as much as a Paragon, because I felt as a Paragon you'd be a bit more patient, but as a Renegade, when I did my Renegade playthrough, like I say, as soon as I saw it, boom, no hesitation. I felt that's exactly the point.
Bastard mode.
Yeah, it's just like I ain't gonna listen to you anymore. Shut the fuck up, right? So how did you feel about that? I enjoyed that. I thought that was a good addition. What about you?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I literally just slapped the Paragon anytime it came up.
Yeah.
Once or twice I may have hit the Renegade thing, only because I felt it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is why I love this franchise, bar Andromeda. Andromeda's not that bad really now. It was when it first came out. But anyway.
It's like I say about Andromeda. If it didn't have Mass Effect on the title, I don't think it would have got anywhere near the shit.
Yeah.
Even though the faces are still was something out of Nightmares. Make no mistake.
Yeah, my fifth. But no, I loved that whole mechanic because you can sort of change the course of things, and it does actually have repercussions. This is the thing. You know, when games say, "Oh, it has devastating consequences on the actions that you know, the effect that you cause and stuff," and it's just like, well, you know, most of them don't. It's all just like bollocks. But
yeah, mostly it's fluff, Pete, but not in the Mass Effect games. They weren't.
yeah, these games really did have consequences, and yeah, I loved that, and the fact that you could go through it again, New Game Plus,
Yep.
and play it as a different type of person. But yeah, no, I loved those prompts. I thought they were great.
One big change, and this is probably my biggest criticism of the game from my vantage point, but I don't think that generally the fan base will probably, well, some of them will, some of them who are more heavy on the RPG stuff. They streamlined this game from the first. They ditched half the powers. You don't get as many skill points in total. They ditched an awful lot of powers.
Yeah,
the gameplay is tighter. It's a better shooter. This game is a better shooter than the first game was. But they've gotten rid of a lot of the kind of behind the scenes, for lack of a better term, dice rolls or RNG generators, which the game did do in the first game. Now, I can't remember if they changed that with the remake, Pete, so it could be that you're thinking, what's he talking about? Maybe in the remaster they might have changed it. I think they did. So if so, then maybe I'm talking about the original before the remasters. So if anyone's wondering what I'm talking about, that is where I'm coming from, would be the original, not the remaster, where it was very hardcore RPG, very much like Knights of the Old Republic, more or less the same, where there was kind of dice rolls going on under the hood. So they completely ditched that for Mass Effect. They completely ditched it for Mass Effect 2, and it became a shooter more than an RPG. At least the gameplay mechanics. It's still very much an RPG in how it does other things, but in the gameplay part, it's very much a shooter now. What did you feel about
that? I agree. It was very much dumbed down in terms of size. And when I say size, I mean sort of like the size of the levels and stuff is very much streamlined in that way. There's literally a couple of areas for the Citadel, and that's it.
Yeah, they
really brought it down.
They really didn't want you to. They really kept the Citadel out of the second game. They really went out of their way for it, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, and you have like Ilium and Omega and stuff like that. Which I really appreciated, but I wanted more. I wanted the exploration aspect, and it's really sort of kept down to a minimum.
Yeah, they dialed back on all that stuff. We'll get to the whole planet exploration or lack thereof.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of other stuff they cut out. They cut out the sort of buggy exploration, and you have like. They changed the buggy to this sort of like hovercraft, and in a couple of missions you have to sort of get from A to B with this sort of buggy thing, which is.
I'll jump in there, Pete, and this is the truth. The hovercraft was not in the original Mass Effect 2 game. The hovercraft was late DLC that came out a year or two after Mass Effect 2 finished. So
was that right?
You wouldn't know, yeah, because you're playing the remastered. It's going to be right there from the start. But yeah, so in the original Mass Effect 2, there was no vehicle of any kind. Well, the hovercraft missions you're thinking about, and I remember the ones, were DLC added late to the game.
Oh, I see.
So.
Yeah, it was annoying. I'm not going to lie. It was annoying. That felt packed on, which it was. It was DLC.
Yeah.
But like have it more integrated and let me go and explore with it. It's like no, you're restricted. It's like very linear. It's literally like a sort of a corridor simulator practically. But it was the story that really sort of drove you along.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it made me wish there was more available for me to explore when there wasn't. So I started sort of surveying all the planets, and I just got to a point where I couldn't be bothered anymore.
I know, and yeah, so they got rid of the majority of there is no exploration. So any other planets you land on are completely instanced to the mission or side quest you've been given. There is zero exploration involved, as Pete said. But one thing they didn't get rid of, and they quote unquote enhanced, was let's survey all these planets so that we can find materials to mine, and let's put a mini game on this, which I don't think anyone particularly asked for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I don't know why they might as well just, if they were going to get rid of it, fine, get rid of all of it then. Don't keep this thing so we can get certain materials, and it just ends up being quite a dull mini game where you just try to remember it, or where you just, tell me if I'm wrong, Pete, you move the control stick around the planet and then it vibrates if there's, am I right? Or am I wrong?
Traditionally, yes.
Yeah.
But I modded that aspect of the game
okay.
because I was just like, I really, really don't want to be bothered doing this.
Yeah, it's fine.
And this is the beauty of PC gaming, folks. You can tweak things if it's not to your liking. I mean, like, you know, and we'll get to this. It's like it would have been fun the first time around playing it when it first came out, but things have changed, and there needs to be sort of some quality of life updates, which, you know, weren't considered with the remastering or anything. So yeah, I kind of removed that and added sort of like a more simpler process that I could just launch a probe anywhere and I get some resources. Fuck it.
I think
you know what I mean?
I think, to be honest, mate, when it comes to something like that, I think we all wish that we could do that.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, a crappy little mini game like that. So yeah, they got rid of pretty much most of the reasons to explore have all been taken away from you. I would say my reply, it would be, thank God that the story is probably the best of the three games, and I think it is. I don't think number 3 you think should have been, but because of the ending and what they kind of did with the ending of the third one, that brings the third one down. And the first one's story was good, just not as good. I don't think it's getting away from it.
I think I prefer the second one out of all three so far. From what I'm going on with my memory. I have started part 3. And straight away I've noticed an update in graphics, and it's absolutely fantastic with my Shepherd. And you know, they've got things like ambient occlusion, and oh my god, it looks so beautiful. So I just wish they sort of backdated those graphics for the previous 2, because like the first one is awful.
Well, maybe they'll do a proper remake rather than a remaster on them. Who knows?
Yeah, and part of me just wants to sort of NVIDIA remix it so that it has ray tracing and stuff. But you know, whatever. I'm still experimenting with remix. But yeah, no, this is definitely the better one out of the 3, I think, just because it's in the middle of the story more than anything else, and yeah, it's the end suicide mission, and it really builds it up. And if you haven't got loyal crewmates, then there's a huge risk that they're gonna, you know, not make it, basically.
Yeah, there's lots of the loyalty of your crew matters. Also, the state of your ship matters as well. If you've got like armor plating for your ship, I'm trying to remember that there's something you have to do, or some mission you have to do to get the armor plating, and if you don't, that will kill a member of your crew, loyal or not. You will lose somebody if you don't have. There's 2 or 3 different things which are optional, but if you don't pick them up before the suicide mission, you will lose people, loyal or not. And then, of course, there's the other checks, I suppose is the word to use, where if you've done the loyalty missions, then they will not die during these cutscenes in the final mission.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things that you know, and if you do everything, everyone will survive. They will. You know, there's no kind of like RNG elements to it. If you do every mission in the game, everyone will survive.
Yeah, which I did. I did every mission that came across. Yeah.
And if you rush the game and you don't bother doing, like I say, either the loyalty missions or even these missions to get the extra ship upgrades, then you will lose some people. I think the game. Right. So, as I said, I did 2 playthroughs, and I did a playthrough with my Renegade Femshep, and as I've said about her, she didn't give a shit about anything, just doing the mission. So I can say that not everyone does die, even if you don't do anything. Well, the game gives you 2 members, so you will always have your free party members. I don't know why the game chose the 2 people to survive who did. It certainly had nothing to do on my part.
Yeah.
The game just gives you two people who don't die. I think it was Jacob and Miranda, so it could be is the game just defaults to that because they're the first two you meet. So maybe I believe that in my when I played my femshep, it was her, Jacob and Miranda. I think were the three survivors, and I didn't choose to do any of the loyalty missions.
Jake and Miranda hate each other, which is great. I love that dynamic.
Yeah. So it's really good. And it can really impact the third game because obviously in the third game, if everyone's dead, your choice of party members is reduced because half of them are dead.
Yeah. It was just it was a good story, and I just wanted more of it. I wanted more to explore, especially the major sort of titties, Omega in particular. I was so sort of like because I couldn't remember more than half of the game. But
did you like the cameo from Carrie-Anne Moss playing the? Did you realise that was her?
Playing who?
In Omega, the first place you go to, she's the Asari who runs a club. That's Carrie-Anne Moss.
Oh, Arya. Oh, really? Is that her?
Carrie-Anne Moss, yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I do recognise a few voices. Martin
Sheen does the voice of the cigarette smoking man, or whatever you want to call him.
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen plays
the elusive man.
That's right. Yeah.
I can I just say I loved the elusive man.
Yeah, he's good.
He's really, really good. Zaid Masani was absolutely brilliant as well. Jack, in a way, is good. She's a bit of a bitch, but
Jack gets a lot of shit from us though, because neither one of us. I mean, I don't hate her. I just think she's probably just the worst character out of those. Let's talk. That's a good thing. Let's talk about the roster. A much improved, better roster of characters. That you can a larger roster for a start, but also a much improved roster. Do you agree? I think so.
Yeah, very, very. That they're not cardboard cutouts. They're very unique characters. They're very individual. They have their own sense of morality, and they have their own sort of journey, and you can choose to sort of help them out, like with Samara wanting to
that's a great little twist. That is.
Yeah, wanting to track down her daughter, who's become sort of like this weird sort of killer rapist type thing.
And if you play as the bad guy, which I did, like I say, in one of the playthroughs, you take the rapist, for lack of a better term, she becomes one of your crew members. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. If you choose the other way, yeah. So Samara was good. As I said, I loved Zaid Masani. There wasn't sort of like a proper sort of cutscene conversation with him. He was
DLC again, dude. That's the reason why. It's more of this DLC stuff that you probably don't remember because you're getting the full game here. He was DLC.
Right. I never really liked Tali that much.
You didn't like Tali? I thought Tali was cool.
Not really. I just,
You could romance her, in the second game. You couldn't in the first game, but in the second game you could romance her if you wanted.
And wasn't the girl who plays Meg in Family Guy? Didn't she do some voice acting for it? Because I swear it's her. It sounds exactly like
Mila
her.
Kunis.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to look that up because it sounds exactly like her. Didn't she sort of do? I killed her off in the first one.
Well, Ashley, nah.
Nah, sure. Because I swear it sounds exactly like her. Okay. I never liked Ashley.
I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure I would have, because I knew about Martin Sheen, I knew about Carrie-Anne Moss,
and you've got Councillor Troy as the antagonist in the first one, that Asari woman, and I swear.
See, I didn't know that. Is that her, Mitch? I can't pronounce her name.
What's her name? Yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I noticed she did voices in XCOM. I didn't recognize the voice.
Yeah, the woman who goes and one step closer to the Reaper. Yeah, it's her. That's her. And I swear Worf is a voice actor in there, like
It
with
wouldn't
Rex or
surprise
something.
me because he did voice acting in XCOM as well. So obviously he does it. He does it. He does.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the roster was absolutely great. I struggled to sort of, go, I mean, like, I ended up going with Samara more than Jack because she was a more powerful biotic.
Yeah.
And the assassin guy, I liked. I've forgotten his name now. He looks like a sort of a fish type guy.
Hey, there was another DLC character, right, in the game, and I'm not going to tell you which one. You tell me which one you think it is, and then it's just to see if you can notice a quality in difference. One of the other characters you get is DLC. We've already spoken about one of them.
Yeah, Legion.
No, he was originally in the game.
Are you sure? I thought he was DLC.
No, he's originally in the game. Trust me.
Yeah. So who? Oh, Grunt.
No, he's originally in the game as well.
What? The Grunt being the test tube Krogan, everyone, if you don't know. Go on then, I don't know.
It's a Japanese chick. The Japanese assassin chick. I forget her name.
Japanese assassin chick?
Yeah. And she calls him.
Oh.
She calls him Shep all the time. And it's like, don't call me Shep.
Is that the bird with the hood, and you only see the bottom half of her face all the time? Yeah. Okay. She
was DLC. Okay. I did after the game as well.
Yeah, no, she was right. I didn't sort of bring her that often. She was okay actually because
she was called you Shep, and I'm like, don't call me Shep.
I never really noticed, but I did like her combat style though. She'd go invisible and flank them and sort of come back, around behind them and stuff like that. So let's sort of bring up the end game for the second one, the suicide mission. It really built it up, didn't it? It was, and there were a lot of variables, as you said. If you didn't have your ship upgraded enough, then shit would start breaking apart, or if you didn't have enough loyal members, then there was a huge risk that they'd die and stuff, and you just didn't know. So the logic and the building behind all of that was just absolutely brilliant. They must have had to do a whole ton of FMVs for that whole ending thing. And
great. It was great. It could be. I'm thinking about like final missions in games, and maybe that's a podcast we could maybe do at some point regarding a favorite. But I mean, it might be my favorite. I don't know if I can think of a game which had me as hyped, I suppose, for lack of a better term, for the end mission. It had all the kind of things which you see in like a lot of TV shows and movies where, like the night before the mission is when you get to make love to your chosen romance or option. Do you know what I mean? That's when the cutscene happens, and so that's when all the stuff happens, and everyone kind of goes off by themselves and spends like, the idea is like maybe their last night alive kind of thing before.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's got that kind of thing to it.
Yeah, they should have put something like that in. They didn't, though, did they? There wasn't sort of like this sort of party night before the thing. That would have been nice.
They all kind of go off by themselves. They didn't. But that's when like I said, that's when the love interest, if you chose one, that's when that storyline kind of kicks in fully. Whoever it is you've chosen to romance, you'll have your love scene with them the night before the suicide mission. Do you know what I mean? So it's got all the kind of tropes you'd expect for like a big film or a TV series that we can all think of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, okay. So in terms of the difficulty for that third act, I wanted there to be more of a challenge. Now, I did play on normal difficulty, but I wanted it to be seriously overwhelming, and it wasn't. So that's the only gripe I have. It's just like, okay, so even though I'm on normal difficulty, I wanted it to be like really, really just like surrounded by sort of like elite Geth and stuff like that, or whatever, or elite collectors, sorry. And yeah, we never got to fight the sort of head collector guy who kept taking people over.
That was a disappointment, and
Yeah.
That disappointment, like I said, we'll get to the third game when you finish it, but that disappointment does carry into the third game regarding that enemy. The truth is that throughout the whole of the game, you actually don't get to really fight that enemy that is introduced to you in the second game. You don't fight him in the second game. You fight characters he's controlling, but you don't fight him. And in the third game, you do see him right before the end, but you don't really get a chance to really directly fight him, which is a shame.
Well, it turns out that he's a Reaper in it. I mean, like, so spoilers, everyone, but like, yeah, he's a Reaper. But it's like I wanted to fight him, and I remember that with my the first original playthrough years ago, being sort of disappointed with that. And yeah, I remember that sort of as I was doing it. But yeah, I wanted there to be more of a challenge. I wanted sort of to be faced with overwhelming enemies and sort of dying all the time and having to sort of rethink my tactics and etc. But it, you know, I know I was on normal difficulty, so it's fine, but I just felt like they missed something there. They're like, yeah, you are on normal, mate, but it doesn't mean it's going to be like normal difficulty, this end bit. It's a suicide run. And that they kind of they didn't do that, so yeah.
It's a difficult one because that comes maybe down to game balance. Of course, it comes down to player skill, and then a mixture between player skill and game balance. I'm honestly, I don't remember having any particular trouble with it either. I don't remember thinking it was a me just running in there, not having to take cover. Do you know what I mean? So you still had to be thoughtful.
No, yeah, you had to take cover, otherwise, yeah, you'd be taken out. But if you had all the upgrades for the weapons and whatever, then you know it wasn't that difficult. So yeah, they should have done a an upgrade check on that and sort of like spawn more enemies and stuff like that to make it more sort of like fuck sort of feeling, or maybe sort of take away more sort of cover areas so that you're in the open more and you have to think about where you're going and stuff like that. I don't know. I do feel like there was a lot of cover, and
yeah. I mean, it's
I know it is what it is, but
yeah. I mean, it's a valid criticism a little bit. I felt that way a little bit. Like you could tell that everywhere you went to fight enemies, that there
was some cover conveniently placed.
There's always something.
Yeah,
and I suppose the game has, as you say, the game has to do that because some play styles maybe doesn't use. You're playing as a Vanguard, you probably don't need it as much because you're all about getting in their faces. But if you're playing as a more defensive character or maybe a sniper, someone who's meant to stand back and not get near the enemy, then you probably need it more. So it's a playstyle thing, and I guess it is difficult because obviously they've got to try and balance all the playstyles. But
yeah. So the big baddie, who is the Human Reaper, terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
What choice did you make? Is an interesting one because you get two choices. You can kind of give the station to Cerberus, or you blow it up, don't you? What did you choose?
I chose to blow it up.
So and blowing it up is the Paragon thing to do.
Well, yeah, it's just like, are you fucking you call me now, right before I'm about to set the charges.
To do the right thing with the station, then, Pete.
You
didn't trust the Cerberus to do the right thing.
Fuck no.
You wouldn't give it to them.
Fuck no. As we learn in the third one, it's just like they just carry on with their bastard fucking, abhorrent sort of like biological mutilation of people and stuff like that.
That's something to mention. Cerberus are fleshed out a bit more in the second game a lot, and that's who you end up working for. And you find out that not all of Cerberus are evil bastards. Some of them have good reasons for being there. But I will say this, is that in the third game they do kind of go back to just being dicks.
Yeah.
In the second game, it's like you try and see it from their perspective, and a lot of your squad mates are from Cerberus, and they end up being not bad people, and
Jacob Miranda.
But in the third game, they are just positioned as the villains again. There's no real kind of like Most
middle
of
ground.
yeah, most of your members who you've got in the second game, when you find them in the third game, are no longer with Cerberus anymore. So they are just back to being just kind
Yeah.
of token villains in the third game. So if you were hoping that in the third game Cerberus,
Had learned
no,
something.
they just
No.
end up being the villains again, and that's kind of it. And they're villains. And the elusive man also. Well, we'll talk about it in the third game. But he ends up being he's a villain in the end, really. So
But yeah, no, he was absolutely brilliant. The elusive man, I loved him. But the Human Reaper was terrifying, and they missed a huge trick with having this having a sort of like a huge battle, like a sort of like a Dark Souls battle with him.
yeah.
And they should have done that, and it was literally just you have to shoot his eyes.
They couldn't do it because of the whole cover mechanic. Like it's just not in the engine to be able to do that kind of combat.
Maybe, probably, but they should have just taken all the cover away and just had him sort of like stand at least the top half of his body, not just his head and shoulders. And my sniper rifle was fully upgraded, so I literally just went in his eye and he was dead. Actually, no, what am I talking about? It was the big weapon. Forgotten what it was called now, but like I just did a huge charge. You can find
this absolutely. I think it's called the Widow, isn't it? This sniper rifle, which is just so insanely powerful. It's only got like one shot, so it's like one shot, then you got to reload, but it literally can one shot.
It's like an antimatter sort of sniper rifle, yeah. But yeah, no, it was like the fact that I one-shotted him, I was so disappointed with it.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Wow. I mean, I know that probably you technically probably the most powerful gun in the game, but yeah, maybe it shouldn't be one shot, even for that.
Yeah, at least 3 shots. But I wanted him to sort of do some swiping, and if you did, you were like almost dead, like Dark Souls style.
I think what would have made it a bit better as well is if you would have been right at the end, the last fight would have been just you, and so the last thing you do get separated from your last 2 members, and that's what I mean by that. That's kind of what I was hoping for when I played it with my Renegade Femshep, because I wanted her to be the only one survivor. I wanted the last fight to be, no, everyone is dead, this is all on her shoulders, just her.
Yeah.
But no, the game forces that 2 of them have got to survive, and the game then forces that the last battle has got to be still 3 on 1.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an absolutely brilliant idea. It was excellently executed. They just missed a few tricks. That's all. Which is fine. I mean, this was like a sort of a fresh ground for BioWare, so I'm not going to sort of overly criticize them, but they did a fantastic job with the third act, and with us sort of like criticizing it in this way, it just means that we love it, and we're just trying to think of ways that it could have been better.
It just means that it's not. I mean, nothing is perfect, at least in my eyes. That's why I never give a 10. But it's like it's just like when we're mentioning the small things that would stop it from being the perfect game. That's all.
Yeah. And moving on to the music a little bit, the music was a lot better than the first one. The first one, there was only like 3 or 4 tracks, and it felt very repetitive. With the second one, the sort of the combat music was really pumping, and I felt like really sort of yes, let's go for it, and let's do this. And the added trick of Miranda, I think she's probably the best out of all of them, the whole crew. I wanted her by my side the whole time, except when she heads up another team, and I've got gripes about that, because it's just like, you didn't really need to split up, did you? We could have just all gone together.
Yeah, they had I mean, it was a little bit convoluted, but that was their way of, I guess, of, oh look, we've got to come up ways where every crew member can potentially die, so we've got to come up with 12 ways or whatever.
Yeah, it was brilliantly executed, but like, when you send someone through the tubes as you're going along, it's just like, well, that's not really needed, is it? But anyway, it for a first playthrough, you'll love it. I mean, like on subsequent playthroughs, you're going to start to see plot cracks and stuff like that, but it's fine. It's when you look at the state of plot lines today with games, this really is top class.
There's nothing that's come out in the last couple of years, and that includes Witcher is many years ago. But I'm talking about there's nothing that's come out probably in the last 5 years for me that even comes close to a game like that. And even the third game, which is probably regarded as the worst of the three, even the third game blows most of what comes. I'm sorry, it does.
And this is what we know of. So neither of us have played Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. Neither of us have played other games, like maybe indie games. Yeah, that would have been good. So we're not aware of anything else currently that's out at the moment that is as good as Mass Effect or Witcher. We're just huge fans of it, just because it's zero fucks given, and they'll tell a story, and it's by veteran developers who knew what they were doing.
And Pete, there is one thing I do want to add, and we'll talk about it because this is meant to be what we do. We don't hold back. We talk about stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that is not in this game because of when it came out is it's not particularly PC. What do I mean by that? I mean by you know where I'm going, but let's call it what it is. Right. So games nowadays, there's a lot of things that they won't do. I won't say they're not allowed to do, because they probably are allowed to. They just get shit for it if they do. But there's lots of things nowadays that they can't do, and there's a lot of wokeness and all this new ideology, which people. I'm not saying people can't have it. I do debate how much of it should be in our games, but they can have it. But when this came out, the world was a slightly different place, and there's a great example, and Pete knows exactly what I'm going to be talking about. There is a very, very attractive woman called Miranda, who you've heard us mention. Her model is based on a real life actress who is very attractive also, and is voiced by the same actress. Her name's Yvonne Strakosely, I think. She's an Australian girl, very attractive.
Yeah.
Still is. She's obviously older now, but still is. But so the whole model is based on her, and she's a very beautiful woman. So the model was based on her being a beautiful woman. So what the game does is the game shows off her assets.
Her assets.
Her assets, yes. But she's not just some eye candy. In fact, her character arguably is one of the smartest, if not the smartest character there.
Well, she was engineered, wasn't she? She was designed to look beautiful and designed to have a lot of skills and stuff like that. So she's not like organically born or anything.
No,
as far as I'm aware.
No,
but she was meant to be like that.
Yeah, she was engineered to be beautiful and brilliant in other ways. But in
today's climate, that wouldn't happen, bro.
Yeah. So the truth is that we probably. And it sucks a bit, at least from my perspective, and I think Pete agrees with me, it sucks a bit that we probably can't have these things in our games anymore because companies are just, they won't want to have the shit that comes with it. They won't want to, they'll just stay away from it, or they'll push something else to make up for it. And by the way, for the record, Mass Effect has lots of gay characters in it, and you can have gay romances. And do you know what? I've got no problem. I don't do it because obviously I'm not gay, but it's there. And you know what? I don't think it gets in the way. It's not overtly thrown in your face.
No, it's not. It did it very well, right? Yeah. Like with characters like Jack, who I assume is a lesbian. I don't know.
I think she goes both ways. You can actually,
looks like one.
You can do the deed with her. Let's put it that way if you want. As a bloke as well. So
yeah, I'm all right. But look, this is the problem. Is that in today's climate, you've got so many platforms where people can complain, and people just tend to be a lot more critical about the simplest things. It's almost as if people are that fucking bored that they'll just complain over the tiniest thing, and it's all sort of like made out to be much huger of an issue than it actually is. They're all just making mountains out of molehills and stuff, and it's really irritating. And games like fucking it's a very classic example. What's that one that EA tried to that came out with that we hate?
That could be a lot of games, bro.
Where we play Iron Man.
Anthem.
And that's the one. They tried shoehorning it in with Anthem. It didn't really work out. It was all very boring. And yeah, so like I'm hoping that, you know, we'll get a resurgence of content which is like free from all of this fucking bullshittery.
And I think the point I was trying to get at with the whole wokeness stuff is that she is a strong female character, and you know what? There's other strong female characters. I mean, Pete says he doesn't like Tally, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to like them, but she herself, if you look at her story, she's Korean. She kind of goes against her dad's and her family's wishes by helping you out. She is portrayed as a strong, independent woman. She's not shoved down your throat with it, but she's portrayed as that way. And pretty much all the characters in the game, male, female, alien, are good. Like the Moradin character, the forget the name of the race, the ones who don't live long. Salarian, that's it. Yeah. I love this guy. I love his character so much.
The way he speaks like really quickly.
Yeah. I take him with me. I love the guy's character, right? I always defend him, right? I take him with me. It's always me, him, and then the third person I'll switch around. I always take him, not because, and this is the thing, not because he's a great playable character. He's a tech guy. He's all right. I don't think he's my favorite character get to play with, but because I like him so much, I want him to experience everything and talk to me like they do if they're there for the scenes. So this is high quality characters that I care enough about, where I don't care game mechanic wise that you're not that brilliant or that you're not the best character. I want you to come with me because I love your character so much, and I want to experience the game with you there and to remark on stuff, which is what the characters do. They will remark on what's happening, and they will have small cutscenes alongside you. I'm just saying this is the quality. This is what I'm talking about. This is the quality of going back to one of our shows we did not that long ago. This is the quality of writing we're talking about. This is the high quality characters and writing that will influence you, and you will stop seeing it as a game, almost like I just said I did. I stopped seeing it. It was less about me getting through the game and having the most powerful character, and more about, no, I just love this character so much. I want the character with me.
Absolutely. And this is a perfect example, this game, of developers having full reign on producing something that is like, it's very talented work when you think about it. And so overall then, I mean, like, this is a very fantastic game. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 because there's a couple of sort of nagging issues that really kind of annoyed me, like the fact that like the hub areas like Omega and Ilium, etc., they just weren't big enough.
Yes, they were pretty small. Yeah,
there weren't enough side quests of that nature, like mini side quests. I'm not talking about like crew quests or anything. I just wanted more, and that's a good sign of a good game. You just want more, and it's not entirely mod friendly, this game. They didn't release sort of like a creation kit like but Bethesda usually does. So I mean, like I feel like if they had it done, it would just literally be like a fuckload of good mods for it. So yeah, I mean, like for me, it's an 8 out of 10, and
I'll give it a 9. The Mass Effect series is as a whole is one of my favorite series. I love my space stuff, so that always puts the score up because I love the space setting. And I mean, that doesn't guarantee me a good game. Look at Starfield as a perfect example.
Yeah.
But no, you give me a space kind of sci-fi space thing, that all piques my interest. You give me wonderful characters, which they are. You give me a great story, which it is. Do I wish the gameplay was maybe a bit more role-playing and less about going to the kind of Call of Duty stuff? Yes, because I prefer the role-play stuff. So I can say that probably the gameplay went in a direction that I'd rather it didn't. But in the third game, they do strike a better balance. So there was obviously more blowback than just me that stopped turning it into a shooter. Because the third game is a good balance. So 9 out of 10. And there isn't many criticisms. And most of the criticisms we've got are small things that nitpicky things. But I wish there was more of it as well, Pete. I wish that somebody would remaster it just so I've got an excuse to play it again. To remake it, sorry, not remaster it, remake it, so I've got an excuse to play it again. You know what I mean?
I mean, it really is about graphics, and you know, with a game like this, you want decent graphics, and don't get me wrong, they are decent, but it's like it's the character models, like the human character models, which always kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah.
They always looked a bit strange, and I always felt like, you know, they could literally sort of take that back to the you know, drawing table and make them better, because they all looked, you know, very similar, like, you know, their eyes were too close together, or they were cross-eyed or something weird like that. So yeah, you know, and the levels, the way they look, they're fine, absolutely brilliant, but you notice the difference between 1 and 2, and then you play 3. When you play 3,
I mean,
it's like,
we're
wow.
looking at some. Obviously, you've got some videos on in the background that we're looking at, and I will
Yeah.
say, yeah, there is a little bit of a lack of detail. You've talked about everything, and there is too much cover, and everything looks like it's too much cover. Everything's
Yeah.
the right height for it to be perfect cover. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, you turn around a corner and you see loads of cover, and you're like, right, here we go.
yeah, this is going to be a combo
Guns,
session.
guns out, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they. I mean, it's limited by its time, and this is a remaster. It's not a remake. So all they've really done is made it a bit prettier. They're not gonna add this stuff, you know. But hey, look, if BioWare are not in a great place right now, we know that because of their recent games. They could do a hell of a lot worse by remaking the Mass Effect games. I don't think they're going to, but they could do a hell of a lot worse.
Dude, if they decided to remake the Mass Effect trilogy and sort of kept the various mechanics consistent throughout the whole thing, so they kept the ground buggy exploration, they kept the, you know, dare I say it, the resource surveying, gathering, and then they had just like top quality Unreal Engine style graphics. It would just be fantastic. And if they added to it as well, so they had, you know, like areas of interest when you're down in the buggy, traveling, and like, you know, not cities, but say villages, or, you know, outposts. That just would be brilliant. And then you have to sort of like maybe solve some side quests there, and, you know, give you some sort of time there. It's, you know, when you think about it, it's like you do this the right way, Bethesda, and, you know, with like Starfield, the story was just so bland, but like the mechanics are very similar. It's like you don't have you have a cutscene where you fly down to the planet, sure, and so does Starfield, but the difference between Starfield and Mass Effect is that the story in Mass Effect is so fucking good. And all you've got different races, and all the races are very unique.
Mate, the difference in world building between the Mass Effect games and is it's night and day.
Startling.
It's night and day. I didn't give two shits about anyone in the Starfield universe. Sorry, Sarah. Yeah, I'm not saying you're the worst character I've ever seen, but I'm sorry, I just didn't care that much. You never gave me a reason to, mate.
And she's no Miranda, so. No. That kind of, you know, that wraps it up.
There is one last thing I'd like to say also, Pete, and then I'll close on it. The only other issue that I would see, and this is the harsh truth, guys, is that the people who made this game no longer work for BioWare. So it's one of those things where lightning struck, you know, lightning strike at the right time, the right place, with the right group of developers who always work together, and they're no longer there in BioWare. So BioWare is not that company anymore. And so even if they were to make a remake, as much as I'd want them to, I don't think the heart's there anymore. It won't be made.
It's worrying, this new Mass Effect title that's coming out. It's very worrying. I'm concerned. And it's for the reasons that you mentioned earlier, which is like, I don't want any you know, modern politics in there. I want it as a really nice story, and I just want more. I want areas to explore, and I want to be lost in the world and stuff, and I don't want it to be like just focused on one thing, like a you know, Call of Duty shooter or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got to be decently balanced.
So I guess what I'm saying is savor the game as it is, because there's a good chance, unfortunately, that there won't be. I'm not going to sit here and say never, because who knows in time, but it won't be anytime soon. So if you haven't played this game or the first game or the third game, go play them. Yeah,
go play them. You have to sort of accept that the graphics are under par, but if anyone manages to NVIDIA remix them, then that is a good thing. So, but it's not just graphics really. It's just like the optimization of animations. There needs to be more variants of the similar animations and stuff like that. So, yeah. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that show. If you did, then please consider subscribing and liking, commenting, and all that good stuff. Let us know what you feel about this trilogy. We obviously adore it. It holds a very special place in our hearts.
Yep.
And we have a Patreon channel, so if you choose to support us, that will enable us to be okay with demonetization and allow us to sort of speak a little bit more freely. I tried to write the word shit in one of our descriptions earlier, and it wouldn't. It gave me a warning. I was like, really?
Are you surprised, Pete?
I put in shite and it was fine. I just added an E on the end and that was okay.
Interesting YouTube, really interesting that is.
Yeah, well done, guys. All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next show. Take care.
Yeah.